How does a son of a provincial French industrialist turn a modest inheritance into the largest luxury empire on earth, and a personal fortune that, at its peak, reached nearly $200 billion? This is the story of Bernard Arnault, ruthless when he must be, brilliant when he needs to be, and absolutely obsessed with one idea: brand. Visuals: fast montage, black and white photos of young Arnault, spinning couture runways, a Louis Vuitton trunk, the Dior logo, ticker tape showing market caps, aerial shots of LVMH headquarters. On-screen text: from $0 to $188.5 billion. Timestamp. Music: Rising Cinematic. Bernard Jean-Étienne Arnault was born in 1949 in Roubaix, a once industrial town in northern France. His father ran a civil engineering and construction business, Ferret-Savenel, and the young Bernard grew up seeing both the hard realities of industry and the pride of building something that lasts. He studied engineering, entered the family business, and learned the mechanics of property, construction, and balance sheets, practical lessons that would later power his strategy in luxury. Archival family photos, if available, footage representing 1960s, 70s France, shots of engineering blueprints and construction sites. But Arnault was not born into luxury. He was raised in an industrial environment and trained as an engineer and businessman. His fascination with fashion partly came from his mother, who loved the elegance of houses like Dior, a detail that would feel like destiny years later. These early influences, engineering rigor from his father, aesthetic curiosity from his mother, combined into the DNA of a man who would build brands as one build structures, carefully, layer by layer. Arnault's first major public challenge came in the early 1980s. After working in his father's business and gaining experience, he moved into the family-controlled construction group and then into investment. In 1984, a bankrupt textile group named Boussac, owner of Christian Dior and other assets, went up for sale. For many, it was simply a failing textile conglomerate. For Arnault, it was possibility masked as problem. He bought Boussac for a symbolic price, and, in an act that would earn him a reputation for harsh efficiency, he cut what didn't work. That meant thousands of layoffs and the sale of assets. But he kept the crown jewel, Christian Dior, and a flagship department store, Le Bon Marché. It was a gamble: prune the fat, keep the brand. Some called him cold, others called him decisive. Either way, the maneuver set the pattern: buy undervalued assets, strip what's unnecessary, and invest in brand value. Interview clip suggestion: a business historian or fashion editor briefly contextualizes how scandal and pragmatism often sit side by side in big corporate turnarounds. LVMH, Moët Hennessy Louis Vuitton, was created by a merger in 1987 that brought together the champagne maker Moët Hennessy and the fashion house Louis Vuitton. Arnault saw an opening: a newly formed conglomerate with powerful brands and internal turmoil. He moved fast. Between 1988 and early 1989, he staged a calculated takeover, assembling cash, buying strategic stakes, and winning over allies until he secured control. The fight to control LVMH was messy, strategic, and ruthless, and it made Arnault chairman and the architect of a new model for luxury conglomerates. This takeover wasn't a single dramatic coup. It was a series of financial moves, pooling funds, forming strategic alliances, including with Guinness at one stage, buying shares publicly and privately, and then outmaneuvering rivals. Arnault's engineering mind wanted structure, but his approach to LVMH was surgical: acquire, consolidate, replace leaders if necessary, and then rebuild around a core of timeless brands. After gaining control, Arnault's LVMH began to grow through a disciplined program of acquisitions and brand stewardship. He didn't simply buy names. He invested in creative directors, in ateliers, in retail experience, and in scarcity. Under Arnault, brands were given autonomy but held to high standards. He bought prestigious houses. Christian Dior became the foundation. Louis Vuitton was expanded globally. Bulgari was integrated. And decades later, more headline-grabbing additions like Tiffany Co pushed LVMH further into jewelry and American markets. Each acquisition followed a playbook: preserve heritage, modernize operations, scale distribution, and protect price integrity. Arnault's stewardship turned LVMH into not just another conglomerate, but the definitive curator of global luxury. He treated brands like heirs, protectors of culture and rarity, while also running LVMH with financial discipline, centralized capital allocation, decentralized creative decision-making, and obsessive attention to customer touchpoints. The result: growth that was both organic and acquisition-driven, often delivering outsized margins typical of high-end luxury. Arnault favored companies that were operationally tangled but brand-rich. By acquiring what others forgot, like Dior inside Vuitton, he paid little for a lot of symbolic value. After takeover, underperforming business lines were sold. Cash was redeployed into creative talent, flagship stores, and supply chain upgrades. This combination of austerity and selective investment improved margins quickly. Arnault avoided discounting. He kept supply tight on core luxury items so that desirability and price remained high. This is what differentiates true luxury economics from fast fashion volume playbooks. Designers and brand managers get autonomy. Arnault's corporate HQ supplies the cash, M&A muscle, and long-term strategies. Brands execute on design and identity. This small team's big balance sheet approach retains artistic credibility. Arnault ensured family control through holding companies and gradual placement of family members into leadership. That made LVMH a multi-decade project, not a quarterly turnover play. Arnault's leadership style has provoked strong reactions. To investors and boardrooms, he's a cold, calculating genius, a dealmaker who will reshuffle executives to achieve company goals. To creatives, he's often viewed as exacting. He expects excellence, and he backs talent with resources. Publicly, he's famously media-shy but fiercely present at major launches, and privately, he's a collector of art and a believer in heritage, the two things that often influence his acquisitions and cultural decisions. Arnault's path has not been without controversy. Critics point to the aggressive layoffs during early restructurings, the hard-nosed tactics used in corporate battles, and the concentration of cultural institutions under one private umbrella. Others question dynastic succession plans and how concentrated wealth affects culture. These critiques are part of the story because every empire, industrial, media, or luxury, has trade-offs between cultural stewardship and commercial control. Arnault's personal fortune has fluctuated with markets, but LVMH's rise made him, at various times, the richest person in the world. Estimates differ by source and day, but Forbes and other trackers have placed Arnault's net worth in the high hundreds of billions at peaks, with headline figures often around $170 to $190 billion, depending on LVMH stock performance and valuations. What matters more than a changing number is the mechanism. Arnault's wealth is tied directly to the stock market value of a company he largely controls, and that company is the world's most valuable luxury conglomerate. Here are a few of the milestones that turned a consolidated set of brands into an empire. 1984, Vuitton/Christian Dior purchase, kept Dior as the jewel. 1987 to 1989, LVMH stake accumulation and takeover. Arnault becomes chairman and crafts the conglomerate's central strategy. 1990s, 2000s, strategic luxury acquisitions. Brands including Fendi, partnerships, Bulgari, 2011, and others broaden the group into jewelry, watches, and more. 2020, Tiffany Co acquisition. A headline move into global jewelry retail and the US market. If you want to boil Bernard Arnault's story to lessons you can use, whether you're an entrepreneur, investor, or brand builder, here are 10 distilled takeaways. Buy the brand, not the balance sheet. A cultural asset often outlives bad operations. Pay for the name, then fix the business. Protect price integrity. Scarcity breeds desirability. Don't trade long-term prestige for short-term revenue spikes. Centralize capital, decentralize creativity. Give designers freedom, manage money and M&A at the top. Make disciplined cuts. Tough restructuring creates runway for investment, if done smartly. Think in decades, not quarters. Arnault built a family and holding structure to see LVMH across generations. Acquired to fill capability gaps. Jewelry, watches, perfumes. Each acquisition plugged a hole in the luxury value chain. Use art and culture as brand fuel. Museums and patronage reinforce brand narratives. Fondation Louis Vuitton is a case in point. Be comfortable with unpopular moves. Tough leadership decisions often invite criticism. That's part of empire building. Leverage storytelling. Each brand must sell history as much as product. Control matters as much as cash. Minority stakes can be converted into control through clever financial engineering.